early 1960s were not just about cars, they were about a cultural battle fought on America's highways and racetracks. NASCAR, only a decade old, had exploded into a national obsession. On Sundays, grandstands filled with fans who wanted to see their favorite brand, Ford, Dodge, Plymouth, or Chevy, prove its dominance. Winning wasn't just about trophies, it was about marketing, pride, and bragging rights. Chevrolet, despite its strong lineup of engines like the 348 and 409, was starting to lose ground. Ford was pushing its 427 wedge hard, and Chrysler was developing the mighty HEMI. If Chevrolet didn't act fast, it risked becoming and also ran in the most important racing spectacle in America. But there was a problem. In January 1963, General Motors issued a strict corporate ban on factory-backed racing. Publicly, Chevrolet was supposed to step away from competition. Privately, though, engineers and racing insiders knew this was impossible. NASCAR was too important. Dealers, customers, and racing teams demanded that Chevy fight back. So deep inside Chevrolet's engineering department, a secret program was born. It was hidden from executives, hidden from most of GM, and hidden from the public. The project was simple in theory, but radical in execution. Build a new, larger, more advanced engine that could crush Ford and Chrysler on the high-speed ovals. That engine would carry 427 cubic inches and an entirely new design. The men who created it called it the Mark II Big Block, but the outside world gave it another name, the Mystery Motor. The name came from confusion. When photos leaked into racing magazines, journalists had no idea what they were looking at. It resembled Chevy's 409, but the details were completely different. Chevy refused to clarify. They never issued specs, never offered details, and never admitted how many existed. It was shrouded in secrecy from day one, and that secrecy made it legendary. To understand why the Mystery Motor was so special, you have to dive into its engineering. Chevy's small blocks, like the 283 and 327, were solid but not enough for NASCAR superspeedways. The 409 W Series was powerful but crude. Its combustion chamber design limited performance at high RPMs. Engineers knew they needed something entirely new. The Mark II 427 solved that problem with canted valve cylinder heads, a design that tilted the valves at an angle. This allowed for larger valves, straighter intake ports, and massively improved airflow. It was a precursor to the legendary porcupine head design that became the hallmark of Chevy's later big blocks. The block itself was overbuilt. Reinforced main caps, improved oil passages, and stronger crankshaft support made it durable under punishing race conditions. It was designed to rev beyond 6,500 RPM, unheard of for such a large displacement at the time. Horsepower figures were never officially published, but dyno sheets from NASCAR insiders whispered numbers in the 550 to 600 horsepower range at 6,800 RPM. Torque was monstrous, over 480 pound-feet, delivered with the kind of ferocity that made stock car drivers both excited and terrified. Externally, the motor resembled a 409. This was intentional camouflage. NASCAR rules required that engines be based on production models, and Chevy wanted officials to believe this was just a modified version of what customers could buy. In truth, the Mystery Motor shared almost nothing with the 409. It was a wolf in sheep's clothing. When mechanics saw it for the first time, they knew instantly. This was not an ordinary Chevrolet engine. The heads were unlike anything they had bolted on before. The sound was sharper, angrier. Drivers reported that it felt like a rocket compared to the old W Series. It wasn't just an upgrade, it was a revolution hiding under a familiar shape. The stage for the Mystery Motor's debut could not have been more dramatic. The 1963 Daytona 500. Daytona wasn't just another race, it was the crown jewel of NASCAR. Manufacturers poured everything into it, knowing that victory there meant headlines across the country. For Chevrolet, Daytona was the chance to prove that their secret project was worth the risk. A handful of teams were quietly given the Mystery Motor. Among them was Junior Johnson, one of the toughest and most respected drivers in the sport. Johnson had made a name for himself with raw talent and mechanical intuition, and now he had a weapon that could change history. In qualifying, Johnson stunned the paddock by posting blistering speeds. His Mystery Motor Chevy topped 165 miles per hour, speeds that Ford's 427 wedge cars struggled to match. Mechanics in other garages were baffled. They looked under hoods, trying to figure out why Johnson's car sounded different, why it pulled so hard off the corners, and why it screamed so fiercely down the straights. During the race itself, the Mystery Motor cars proved their dominance. Johnson and other Chevy drivers rocketed to the front, leaving rivals in disbelief. The power was obvious. The cars surged ahead with a force that looked unstoppable. For a moment, it seemed like Chevy had built an engine that would rewrite NASCAR's future. But then, the cracks showed. The mystery motor, while powerful, was still experimental. Cooling problems, oiling issues, and component failures plagued the Chevrolets. Johnson himself led much of the race, but fell back after mechanical issues slowed him down. Still, the impact was undeniable. The mystery motor had shown its teeth. Ford and Chrysler left Daytona deeply worried. NASCAR officials began asking questions. In Chevrolet, publicly, they downplayed it. Privately, they knew they had built something that terrified the competition. The aftermath of Daytona should have been Chevrolet's triumph. Instead, it became a turning point. Ford immediately protested. They argued that the mystery motor was illegal, an engine designed purely for racing with no production counterpart, and in many ways they were right. NASCAR's homologation rules required at least 500 street-legal versions of any engine used in competition. Chevrolet had no intention of putting the mystery motor into Corvettes or Impalas. Meanwhile, GM's corporate ban on racing tightened. Executives in Detroit were furious that Chevrolet had pushed so far with a project that violated official policy. Orders came down. Stop supporting the engine, stop supplying teams, and stop drawing attention. Chevy obeyed, at least publicly. Development halted, availability dried up, and official documentation vanished. In some cases, engineers deliberately misled journalists, claiming the mystery motor was just a modified 409. The truth was buried under layers of secrecy. For the teams that had raced it, the engine became both a blessing and a curse. The performance was undeniable, but with no factory support, keeping it alive was nearly impossible. Parts were scarce, reliability was shaky, and NASCAR's growing scrutiny made running the engine a political risk. The 427 mystery motor became a ghost. It wasn't banned outright, but it was smothered into obscurity. Chevy acted like it had never existed, and for most fans, it remained nothing more than a strange rumor whispered about after Daytona. Though the mystery motor's racing life was short, its legacy was enormous. First, it directly gave birth to the Mark IV Big Block, introduced in 1965. The Mark IV refined everything the mystery motor had pioneered. Canted valves, stronger blocks, improved oiling. These engines became icons. The 396, 427, and 454 cubic inch monsters that powered the golden age of American muscle. The Chevelle SS, Corvette Stingray, Camaro ZL1, all of them owed their power to the DNA of the mystery motor. Second, the engine left a lasting impression in NASCAR. While it was covered up, the performance it showed at Daytona forced Ford and Chrysler to step up their own programs. It pushed the entire sport into a new technological arms race. Third, it became a legend precisely because Chevy tried to erase it. The secrecy, the denials, the lack of documentation, all of it only fueled curiosity. Collectors today prize the few surviving engines, which sit in museums and private garages as rare relics of a time when engineers could defy corporate orders to chase victory. And finally, it became a symbol of motorsport's eternal conflict. Innovation versus regulation, engineers versus executives, speed versus politics. The mystery motor was too good, too dangerous, and too ahead of its time. It showed what was possible, then disappeared before it could fully prove itself. Today, when enthusiasts fire up a big block Chevy and hear that thunderous roar, they're hearing echoes of the mystery motor, a secret weapon that was never supposed to exist, but ended up shaping the future of American performance. The 427 mystery motor was born in secrecy, raced in defiance, and buried in silence. Chevy tried to hide it from the world, but history remembers. Sometimes the engines we weren't supposed to see are the ones that leave the deepest mark.